Gorgeous stone. What do you think? Whoa. What do you think? Is that a beautiful stone there? Let me polish some other stones off camera, and then I'll show you those too. Hey yo, it's your boy Caleko. Today on Chasing Fire, I'm going to be showing you how I use Diashine polishing compounds to put a really nice polish on my fire agate. Now the main trick to getting any of these fire agate done properly is before you move from one stage to another, checking the stone. And typically this means you need to walk away from the stone for a little while. So wash the stone off, set it down and let it dry by itself. Don't wipe it off with a cloth or anything that's going to put any little very small white particles on it that'll make you think you messed up the finish. Just let it air dry, shake it off and let it air dry somewhere and leave it alone for at least 10 or 15 minutes. And then come back to it when you're ready to work again and it's dry and look at it and inspect it. Because that's really when you're going to be able to tell if it's ready for the next stage or if you need to go back and do something again on one of the sections. And it's fine to need to go back and do something again. I have to go back and do something again over and over again on every stone. What's not fine is going through a bunch of stages thinking you're done and then realizing, man, there's this one spot I'm not happy with. And now you need to go all the way back again. That's not so awesome. So this is the biggest tip you're going to get in this video today, is to make sure before you go from one stage to the next stage, you absolutely make sure that your stone is ready to go to that stage. It can save you a lot of time and it can bring out a better finished product. I finished the grinding portion of fire agate with a 600 grit hard burr from Varencourt. It's a 600 to 800 grit Varencourt hard burr. It's a sintered burr. You know, they run anywhere from $22 to $45 a burr. They're not cheap and they can be hard to get a hold of right now during the pandemic. They're not fully stocked ever right now that I've seen in like the last year. Now, in order to use these burrs properly, you have to get really good at trying not to leave tool marks with them. And the way not to leave tool marks is to run your hands really smoothly and lightly over the top and let the burr do the work, and try not to put pressure. When you put pressure, you create flat spots, and also work with the stone and work in circles. I've talked about this a lot, but this is how I get from using a hard burr to a nicely shaped piece of fire agate that doesn't have a bunch of tool marks in it. And some tool marks are excusable and are okay inside a fire agate in order to conserve color. Yet you don't want a whole bunch of them because, you know, you were pushing too hard and you were leaving flat spots on the stone instead of the burr basically just removing, you know, lightly what's there by working in circles. I'm rubbing my hands together. I'm not even sure if you can see that. Now, another way you can remove some tool marks if you have them there is you can use a Diathin or a Diaflex. They will help you remove some tool marks you might have left in one spot or another. And if you order the Caleko's polishing pack from Diashine, they will include some Diathin, I believe, as testers, as samples for you, as a gift. So anyways, in this process, I start off with a medium soft compound. And then I go from the medium soft to a fine. And then after the fine, I go to a super fine soft. And that puts a really, really nice shine on it. Now, you can stop there, and a lot of people do. Before I sell a stone, I tend to hit it with some cerium oxide. Now, right before I use my Diashine, I go ahead and take each one that I plan on using, and I put a couple of drops of water on it, and I cover that, and I let it sit so that it'll soak in a little bit. After I put the water on it and I let it sit for 5 minutes and I come back to it, I want the Diashine to be gummy almost, where I can put my felt tipped burr in it and get a little bit of Diashine on it, and then go ahead and spin the burr with my finger or with the machine and rub the Diashine into it because I don't want it just to fling off. And I really like the felt tip burrs because it absorbs the finer particles of the Diashine and they really stick in there. And when it gets dry and when it doesn't look like it's doing much, you can just put a couple of drops of water on the felt tip burr and then go ahead and that recharges it. And when you hit the stone again, man, you can really see how the stone gets wet and how it's got Diashine all over it again, and it really, really works well. Now, I do the same thing when I'm using a bristle brush burr. What I do with that is I go ahead and when the Diashine's all gummy, I go and put that on it. And if I like to wait and let it dry, but if I can't do that, then I'll put a little bit on the stone and I'll just go ahead and go to work, because the thing about the bristle brushes is they work fantastic, but they do tend to fling the Diashine all over the place and you lose a lot of it. And that's why I really like the wool burrs. But the felt brushes are really needed for getting in some of those tight spots. Between the wool burrs and the felt tip brushes and some toothpicks, between those three things as my total burr repertoire, I've had no problem polishing everything to the high gloss in the areas that I want it to be. I'm really impressed. It's my favorite product. In theory, this is overall a simple process. You take the polishing compound, you put it on the rock, you polish the rock, you wash the rock, you put the next stage of polishing compound on there, and so on until you're done. That's how it is in theory. In practice, you need to make sure that you actually get in the crevices and the creases and the angles and the little dots, which with each step properly before you move on to the next step. And you get better at that with time. But I can tell you that the more time you spend on the first polishing step with the medium soft compound, the better and the faster the other steps are going to progress. The medium soft compound is the one where you want to spend your most time, and you want to make sure that you get a really nice waxy finish from the 600, because it's the hardest step for the polishing compound to take care of, is taking care of it going from a 600 grit to the 12 to 15 or 1600, whatever the medium soft polishing compound is. Once that is done properly, then the fine goes on relatively fast, and the super fine, if the fine is done, also goes on relatively fast. Now, both of those, the more time you give to them, the better the shine is going to be on the back end. The less work that each polishing compound is going to have to do in order for the one after it to give it a really nice shine. And one of the key skills to being able to polish your stones is being able to see when they're ready and be able to tell the difference between a 600 and a 1200, like this stone that I'm putting on the screen right here. Now you can see how one is really shady and one is sort of waxy sort of shiny but waxy finish. Here you can really tell the difference between the 600 hard burr and the Diashine medium soft. The medium soft has a much shinier, waxy finish, whereas the 600 burr has a very dull, matte, almost looks sanded. It still looks sanded. That's a perfect way to say. Shaded, sanded, whatever. You can tell the difference. It's really easy right here. Now with the fine and the medium soft, you can still tell a major difference. It's really easy to tell the difference in these shines right here. You have a waxy finish, and then you have a high gloss. It's not a perfect or a fantastic high gloss, but it's definitely a pretty nice high gloss, especially for only using 2 compounds so far. Now this one, this is where it gets sort of difficult. Can you tell which side has the superfine soft and which side has the fine? It can get a little bit difficult to tell, but there's definitely a major difference. And if you spend a little bit of time with the superfine soft, you get a fantastic wet look almost every time. I shouldn't say almost, but every time. The reason I say almost is because it depends on if you got everything properly. It's not because if the finish is taking because of the polishing compound. It's whether or not you went through the steps properly, cleaned the stone and inspected the stone before moving on to the next step. If you didn't do that, then you'll end up having a spot where you can see scratch marks, or you can see it's sort of dull. It didn't pick up the shine the way everything else did, and you go over it a couple of times more and it still doesn't pick up the shine. Generally in that area, then you have to go back at least to where you think that dullness, what level that is, and start at that. So if you think it's a 600, then, you know, don't go to the 600, but go to the Diashine medium fine soft and then use that on there. But if it's scratches that are deeper than a 600, then you got to go all the way back. And that's just the name of the game with ending up with trying to get a stone done really well. It's just how it goes. Now, all of these stones that I'm showing you now have been polished using only Diashine. I've only done my polishing process that I've shown you in this video, and they look amazing. They look wet, like they're soaking wet fresh out of water, and they are bone dry with a beautiful high gloss. The color you can see from all angles. They're carved properly, and the shine on them is fantastic, and it didn't take very long as opposed to some other products. And being able to wash them with water is really helpful for when you have a stone like this one that has all kinds of crevices in it and levels and cracks and different stuff going on. Now, this stone could have been carved deeper to find out what else is going on, but it wasn't, and it was brought to a really nice high gloss using Diashine, even with all of these sort of steeped areas that are on it, and with the cracks and crevices. There's no polishing compound stuck anywhere in it because Diashine washes off and it's water soluble. Is another reason that I really like this product. Besides the fact that the product just works really well. Really fast and really well. And there you have it. I was supposed to do this video a long time ago, but I just got it out right now. But the finished product I'm happy with, and I hope it helps you progress on carving and polishing fire agate. The stone is an absolutely magical stone. It is extremely valuable to me and not as valuable as it should be to the world. A great time to buy, a great time to own, a great time to carve. I take my time on my stones because I am absolutely concerned with putting out a true one-of-a-kind, one-of-one collectible piece. That's really what I'm concerned with. And to me, a collectible piece of fire agate is anything that has as much color as it possibly can, bringing out all those beautiful, vibrant colors, whatever levels or single colors that you can, but really those neon colors has to be there. Anyways, don't forget to do all of that stuff to try and help my channel. Like, subscribe, share, send me all your money. Anything elevated to a high enough level becomes art. From rock climbing, to singing, to drawing, to almost anything. When a person can elevate it to a really, really high level, it becomes art. And fire agate really is one of those stones. We start with the rock that comes out of the ground that doesn't look like anything much. Plain, some of them will have some color, some of them might even show a lot of color, but regardless, it takes a lot of work, a lot of time, and skill in order to pull the real gemstone beauty out of the piece of rough that we start with. If you're going to do it to the best of your ability. Keep trying, don't worry about recutting, and just try and get your art down. If they're not willing to pay you what your art is worth, then hold on to it. And don't sell it until you find somebody that loves your art for as much as you love it. I love you for watching. I'll see you soon.